present. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
So motion to approve. Second? All right. Good luck with that, Lucille. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, are there comments from the public? There'll also be an opportunity at the end of the meeting. All right, the consent agenda. You can see the items on it. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Reports and recognition. Board chairs report. I just want. It's a short one. I want to say that I had the privilege and the good fortune to attend Wilton High School's winter concert last night. It's continuing in the tradition of multiple years, if not decades, of performance at the high school. I've always heard such outstanding musicians, and beautiful music, and last night was truly inspirational. So thank you to the people at the high school, and the students, performers. And I realize, of course, that it's not only a 9/12 effort to build such talent starts at elementary schools. So congratulations to all the school musicians. And I thought it was also a beautiful tribute that the concert was dedicated to Dr. Manring, who had taught in our district since 2003 at Cider Mill at Middlebrook High School, also the high school. And so it was wonderful that the faculty and the students thought to honor her not only at the high school but also at Middlebrook. And so I can think of no better tribute for a music teacher and students playing such a wonderful concert. So it was great. A good way also to start the holiday season. Superintendent.
Great. I'll echo your sentiments on the beautiful. I'm going to just pile on with a few other recognitions. I want to congratulate PE instructional leader, Dr. Kelly, and the Cider Mill staff for being recognized with Connecticut Red-Ribbon Physically Active School Award. So I'll just read to you what posted on the Connecticut Red Ribbon Pass Program was established by the State Department of Education in conjunction with Connecticut Act to recognize local and regional school districts that qualify as a highly performing or improving program. Physically active schools is intentionally designed to implement strategies for physically active for at least 60 minutes throughout the school. So we applied for several of our schools, and only one school per district can be selected. Cider Mill was selected. Cider Mill was one of only two schools in the entire state to be recognized. So we'll have Dr. Holtz and the Cider Mill staff into January. The state sent gigantic banner for us, and we'll do a more formal congratulations.
Great news.
Hats off to them. We also want to congratulate Middlebrook's debate that participated in its first contest this past Saturday. 246 student schools participated in debate the motion. The House regrets the worldwide proliferation of surveillance cameras. Our students did exceptionally well. 7 individual speaking out of the top 20. In the top 20, 5 were in the top 10. And our teams placed first, 9th, and 10th, and we'll be hosting a competition here in January. Look forward to more success. So we want to congratulate all of our participating teacher moderators, and Katie Durkin and Mike Manoli. And then lastly, we want to congratulate Frank Kampar, and Scott Silver, who have all had presentations accepted to the ISTE conference. This is one of the most popular educational technology conferences, and over the last several years, our staff has had numerous presentations accepted. So continue that tradition, and want to congratulate the International Society for Technology and Education.
Great.
All set.
Great.
All set.
Lots of good news, thank
Lots
you.
of good news, thank you.
Committee reports,
Committee
I think it
reports,
was
I think it was the
policy committee.
We did. We met this morning. It was our first. Meeting turnover. We reviewed the policy audit and scheduled the systematic review of about 40 policies. We discussed policy. 1330 on the use of school facilities, and we'll be making edits to that, and hopefully that should be available for discussion in the new year. And we discussed the need for the creation of a new policy on booster clubs, and work will be continuing on that into the new year. And we also began review of policy 6151, which is class size, and we agreed to convene an interested party stakeholder committee in the new year. That committee will inform any necessary and needed revisions to that policy.
Okay. And who's gonna be on the committee?
So we'll grab a couple of teachers.
Parents, teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. I know teaching and learning has yet to meet. It's yet to meet. All right. Review and discuss. Wilton High School science and cultural trip to Costa Rica. So please, come on down.
Welcome, Matt Hoyt and Sarah Lewis, outstanding high school science teachers.
So last week did our presentation. I think everybody saw it. We've been kind of gangbusters as far as recruiting. 6:30 tonight. We were at 13 out of 15 paid deposit members going on it. And last year we took 8. So
We're
doubled. And it's kind of taken off on us, which is a good thing. We have plans to try to see if we try to bring another teacher, Catherine Gilmore along. So we have another female chaperone. I think it would be a safeguard for another female that can join us. Brett and I can be interchangeable. That female component is crucial. We understand that. So I think bringing Catherine was a smart move. The two questions that were passed along to me on Tuesday morning regarding the natural catastrophe emergency plan, emergency medical access was asked Tom Ranieri, who's the owner of the company. Was asked Tom Ranieri. The response I got, and I kid you not, was I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'm in a tree in Panama. Now, I realize you don't know Tom, but I do. And it comes a shock to me that he was in a tree in Panama somewhere. But he did say that they do have verbiage in their emergency medical treatment is actually in the brochure that we passed along to you. We'll pass along again. Highlight where it is in that guide. And from personal experience, I've been in some of these natural disaster scenarios, and it's real difficult to have kind of a cookie-cutter plan. He said that for other schools, he's had to put it together, so he'll pass the verbiage on that he has, sufficient to have Ridgefield and all these other schools go. But he basically said, please inform your board that it would be kind of a spur of the moment, depending on the situation. If we have an earthquake, if we go one way. If we have a tsunami, it would go another way. If we go on a volcano, that's going to have to unfortunately be a little bit vague in the way they would treat it. But he did assure us that his guides that will be included are wilderness first aid and emergency first responder, and certified, and they have their certification. And I'm a wilderness EMT myself. Our options, our resources are pretty good in case that happens. Obviously, our best case scenario to get them out in any way, shape, or form that we can. And he will pass that verbiage along, which I will then pass on to you.
And I think my question is really just the access point. Where is the nature facility? facility to either exit the country or
It's in
receive
San,
treatment.
it's in San Jose.
So,
It's in
okay.
San Jose.
Okay.
What we didn't realize is that we're off the beaten track. And you really feel like that. At any given time, you're only given 20 minutes for major help.
Okay.
We're right in
Okay.
the township of Turrialba. We're just over the hill type mentality. We very easily accessible medical facilities if we need to.
Okay. Right, it sounds really exciting. So, in terms of your timeline, you need us to. The next meeting? Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions we can answer. Any
Listen,
questions we can answer?
I was there a couple months ago for a day. It really is an amazing
Without a doubt it is. Without a doubt it is.
The difference in Costa Rica and Nicaragua is scary.
This is developed versus developing.
Nicaragua is just sad to say. Costa Rica was just great, really fantastic. How they use every time.
That's great. Well, thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we don't want to go to Costa Rica if you don't like that. Let's go to France. Let's go to France.
Hi, I'm Simon Bulenzi.
And I'm Kimberly Cameron.
And so it's interesting because actually I evaluated my first year. I was here. But going back to my first year, I've been teaching here for 17 years. French and Spanish. I usually teach French and Spanish, but this year I'm only teaching French. In my first year, I was fortunate enough to take kids to Paris in 2004. Amazing experience, a great trip. And things happened, and as you know, we have been going to Europe for a very long time. So this really came from an interest from my students who said, "We'd love to have the experience of going to Paris with you." And so this is how it all came about. So this trip would be for July next year. For about a week, we're hoping to take 18 to 24 students. There will be two female chaperones, Kimberly and Sula Barbera, our teacher. So it's not just a French trip. It's a French discovering art in France. So the trip will be open to all students from incoming ninth graders to 12th graders. So that's basically the trip in a nutshell.
Yeah. I was interested in schedule that. D'Orsay is not on
Musée d'Orsay, no. It's really a question of the price to make it more affordable. But if we're adding on to it, we can. It's just going to increase the price.
It's such a fantastic.
It is. Yeah. I mean, we could probably include it on that because I think we do have some downtime where we can build in a few activities. That will depend also on the interest of what they would like kids.
Sure. I mean, if you're an art impressionist, that's really the. I was just surprised at the recipes. Other than that, I'm not sure how much they will be.
Yeah. But
So you guys keep to three chaperones to every 6 students?
Yes.
6 students? So right now you have 2 chaperones? Three
chaperones. Yeah.
Are you going to?
I'm sorry.
You are going? You are
Oh, yes.
going? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm going to be there on Sunday. That's where I grew up. So I'm 3 times a year, pretty much. So I know Paris fairly well.
And Kevin and I were speaking a little bit earlier. The unrest in Paris. Obviously, keep an eye on that. And decide if it's common enough for
I'll take the temperature next week and in April, assess and see how.
I think it's great.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All right, well, thank you, and we'll vote to approve. Will be on the next agenda.
Thank you.
All right, and Next item is to review and discuss the presentation on modern learning.
Frank Humphrey and Eric Hawkins on
Great.
digital learning update.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us this time to review this with you. I apologize in advance if I go slides quickly, but I want to make sure that everyone has time for comments at the end. So it's actually really very fitting that we're presenting on the last Board of Education meeting this year going into 2020, 20 years into the 21st century, and that we're talking about essentially rebranding ourselves as modern learning as opposed to digital technology. We're in year three of a multi-year plan, and we have much to celebrate. We're going to go over that in a bit. But we also have lots of areas that we're going to be improving through this year and planning forward. The first thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody understands is that our plan supports the vision and promises and portrait of the graduate, and is very much aligned to all of those areas. As we move forward with the portrait of the graduate, and we ensure that our students thrive in today's world, we're going to ensure that we are even more aligned with that, and we're looking forward to that process this year. Our overarching essential question, if I could summarize it, is really about supporting an environment, personalizing learning, providing opportunities for innovation, and providing our teachers with resources that will create those opportunities in teaching for them. In a very recent, actually last week, digital learning advisory council meeting that we part of our governance for this area. We had students participate and talk to us about what they found meaningful, and what they felt that in learning using digital tools. And many of them came up. A lot of the things that are in our goals are about empowering them. To make choices, to innovate, to be able to present things in a variety of different ways. For our teachers to be able to really effectively integrate technology, and they love our new spaces, in our learning commons, the maker spaces, and all of the things that we've been able to do. So our first three goals, everything that makes that happen is our fourth goal. My colleague here, Eric Hawkins, is going to be talking which is really about the infrastructure and Wi-Fi. So I just wanted to kind of take you through a journey of where we've been, and each of these photos tell a story. But I wanted to kind of just recap the fact that we just started this 3 years ago. 2017-18 is when we implemented and we had ready access digital learning district by the end of the year. We had lots of communication. We did a whole rollout with professional learning, technical support. We put in lots and lots of systems in place to make that happen. So going into last year, I actually thought about this because we had the other graphic quite a few times. So I found some pictures to put in there. And what I found from all of the things that I had from last year is that we did implement a lot of transdisciplinary curriculum, which is an integrated curriculum, and really brings in and transcends disciplines. We did extremely well with we implemented at Cider Mill and at Miller Driscoll. We are beginning to pilot at Middlebrook, that's been very successful. We began doing global classrooms, so if we can't take the trip, we're actually going to be able to talk to the classrooms there. We did that last year. We're going to do more of that. But one of the things that really struck me is that through our innovative approach, we were recognized quite a bit last year. We had an award-winning library learning commons, the best in the state. state. Our superintendent got an award for being the administrator of the year. We had presenters at ISTE and at Castle. We received a SECA award, which is Connecticut Educators for Association. For innovative curriculum. We won 10 awards in video production. We also had nationally published articles. So we did 2017-18. We did it well. We were recognized last year. And we began actually just moving forward to where we are now with implementation of a number of systems like Gaggle and Speak Up, which really provide a way of students being safe while they're online.
And in 2018, one of the big things that we accomplished is we were able to upgrade the infrastructure to support at the high school and the middle school. So we replaced all of the wireless and all the infrastructure to enable a lot of this to start to happen.
This past year, it's been not a long time. We started the year with convocation, a better world convocation, which basically had 600 educators in 30 groups, and we solved our district mission through a breakout EDU that included problem solving as well as digital tools and resources. That is actually one of the topics that we'll be presenting at the 2020 conference and a workshop. And a workshop 90 minutes. Lots of international people. We began the ninth grade digital literacy course this year, which has been wonderful in supporting some of the things that we need to do at the high school portfolio, capstone, and a variety of ways of doing reflection there. We have more time in our pre-K 5 instruction. So we've got units in innovative design. We are implementing benchmarks for digital literacy assessments. And again, we presented at Castle in October. We had several of our teachers presenting on one of the units that we've done in transdisciplinary.
Over the summer leading into this year, we were able to upgrade and Cider Mill. And most of our exterior spaces, most of the fields now have wireless access as well. We've been able to work our way over the last 3 years through our network connection, our wireless and our wired connections to really build the infrastructure that's supporting the mission and the projects that are happening in the classrooms.
So basically, what is really most important is our teaching our students. We base all of that on the ISTE standards. And I just included them in here so that when I talk about what we're assessing for fifth graders and eighth graders, when I talk about what are we integrating in the curriculum, we're getting at this in multiple ways through direct instruction, through our curriculum, as well as through our interdisciplinary connections. And within the slide, I basically have very specifics on what those standards are and descriptors for your information. So one of the goals that we added because we are at the point where, in addition to the technology, we want to make sure that we're supporting our teachers and our students and how they learn. And so you've all seen how the library learning commons have been transformed from library spaces and spaces for making, maker spaces, and quiet spaces for reading, and shelves that actually work. So basically, we are now done with Miller Driscoll and Cider Mill to Middlebrook and the high school. And the same way that we did that for libraries, we'd like to take a look at what that means in our classrooms. Similarly, how do we support our teachers in the flexibility that they need to do large groups, and independent work, and that requires within one classroom session to be able to change things and be very flexible. So what's on the horizon? This is working up to next year. We have a project that we're calling Digital Day One, which means that we want every system, every tool. Now that there is a hunger to have everything work and being used on day one. That means as soon as we start next year. We're going to be streamlining and being able to get to those resources quicker through programs that allow our younger younger kids to use badges to actually just log in very quickly. We'd like to expand our virtual learning, which we've done a lot through PD. And we're going to continue with things like transdisciplinary and our modern learning environments and planning forward for that. One last slide on my end. None of this is possible without having a robust, reliable infrastructure. And one of the things that I found really a very recent assessment that I did through a system that we're using for our digital tools is where is Wilton in terms of our effectiveness and where are we? So there's four different places that we can be. You see the chart. You see the chart exploring. We could be at exploring. We're not limited use of tech tools. We then went to hacking at some point where there was widespread use, unstructured, not supported, often called the Wild West. Lots of stuff being used. We actually were rated. Wilton was as optimizing at this point. We're structured. We're thoughtful, and we're focused results instructionally. We'd like to get to which is in the next few years, personalized use that gets to all students. And I'm going to give it over to my colleague now to talk about how we could have
just with technology, we addressed the infrastructure. Now we're really getting into the software and systems that are supporting district across the district, and trying to unify that data. Starting in January, working with teams in the district to go over how we're using the data and how we can make sure that data goes from one system into the next, and we can automate a lot of the systems. The reason the automation is going to be important, and finding the steps and the proper way to do that, and who the stakeholders are, because if you look at the district utilization of software in 17-18, the blue indicates our utilization of software systems. In 2018, we brought in the red systems. In 19 and 20, we're now using the red and the yellow. So there's been a huge proliferation of applications and software systems across the district that are being used on a daily basis now, and finding the best way for us to support and manage those systems going forward is going to be a huge component of the next 8 months of our work to make sure we're able to get to a digital day one.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Probably lots. But thank you. It's all very thought-provoking, as was your article on the 10 principles, which maybe we'll lead into. Let's have questions and comments now.
I have a couple questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about the 8th grade assessment?
Sure. Absolutely. So the digital literacy assessment is through learning.com, and it assesses the ISTE standards that I have the graph and the specifics on. It's performance-based. It only takes basically class period 45 minutes or so. We have done a pre-assessment this year, and we will be doing the actual post at the end of May, thereabouts. It'll be in collaboration with the building principals where it can be scheduled.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just build a comment? So the assessment is done, and we're able to actually see areas that need sufficient improvement and go back and there's.
So basically, and I can tell you just from having seen the pre-assessments, there are areas, for example, global collaborator. That's one of the ISTE standards that has to do with usage of tools to reach, past the classroom. And that's an area of growth for us. We're very strong on digital citizenship. We have a very solid instructional program for that, and it actually reflects what I've seen. When we get to the post, I think that'll be something report out on it, and you can see those particular assessment results.
Is this information that you're going to share with parents?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Is it
And are parents aware that they're going to do assessment?
This has been part of the plan now for, I think, since we implemented this, because we wanted to make sure that not only were we doing this plan and we're putting all the effort in, sure that students are on track and that we can tailor our instruction and our programming.
So how are parents the day before saying your child will have an assessment tomorrow?
Well, it's being done through our library learning commons, so it's being scheduled through that.
So the parents will find out through the library learning. Just like as a parent, if my child comes home and says I had an assessment,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to be honest. I would imagine that it's being announced to them ahead of time before the assessment is given, and we will do that for sure in May when the post is given. It's part of the class.
And then my other question is, you mentioned having a robust and reliable, and I think awesome. So thank you guys for that. What are we doing about security? I hear a lot about seventh graders who are able to access things that probably aren't the best accessible.
I would say we are SIPA compliant, Connecticut, for all of our filtering. So we have a robust filtering system in place.
We constantly updating. I mean,
We're constantly updating and monitoring the systems, and you know, we do have many of our students do have access to systems via their phone or Wi-Fi that aren't governed by the district, and we're unable to block some of those systems.
But the Chromebooks, those are different.
Yes, those are filtered.
I know.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
So I thought I saw myself a picture there 5 years ago.
The traditional.
And I've said a number of times here over the last few years that we're not broken, but we need to break it. That's my job. You know, think about we're still with our desk in a row for the most part. The day is scheduled the same way it was 55 years ago when I was 7th period or 8th period, classes are an hour long, And I've said just it would change, do it in a meaningful way. Reading the modern learning handout here. There's a sometime, and there wasn't a lot of there's an 8-week course that they reference in here. Is anyone going to go and do that?
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that I think I may have very quickly gone over is that last year we had a cohort that were administrators as well as teachers and participated in Bold Moves for Schools with Heidi Hayes-Jacobs and Marie Alcock. This year we have Marie Alcock actually as one of the folks that's come in. She actually led the Long Range Planning Committee meeting back in October and will be back again this year. And the same ideas that are in that particular article are really espoused by Heidi Hayes-Jacobs and Marie Alcock. And we do have groups of people that are participating in that PD.
Okay, but not this one specifically for this group?
No.
Okay. I was just curious about that because it seemed like 8 weeks is a long time.
It is.
Okay.
I had a question about building on the security one, with the explosion of software and applications and data systems. The security around data and data privacy is something that is a fear shared not just by Wilton schools, but obviously much larger audience. What precautions or filters or protocols?
So basically,
without killing us with the details.
Right. No, we'll make it so. Connecticut has a student data privacy law that's very robust. It's probably one of the strongest in the entire country. And we go through a very rigorous process to ensure that all of the resources that we use comply with that law. We have an agreement. I work with Shipman and Goodwin on a regular basis, and the staff knows that there's a process before anything's utilized, that it must be complied, it must be approved. In addition, if there were to be a vendor error at some point with data, we also have a data breach protocol, and that's all posted on the website. One of the things that we're really very proud of is all the information that can be found on the website. We're very transparent in all our processes.
Fran, do you want to just talk for a minute about the trusted learning environment work?
Sure, yes, and it actually does dovetail on that. So a number of districts have basically come together to go through a number of things that have to do with policies and procedures, classroom practices, professional learning, business practices that lead to a distinction through COSN, which is an organization that really is about, I can't remember what it all stands for, but it's about networking tech directors. And that particular organization has deemed this process to be the most robust in terms of getting to what they call trusted learning environment distinction. And Wilton is part of that cohort. And I've been working with that team. Part of what came out of it was what we're now using on a regular basis if there were to be a data breach. So we created that and is being, kind of used as part of the trusted learning environment.
I guess I just had one question then about the digital citizenship.
Yes.
Are you finding, or is there a way to kind of look at, is there a disconnect between what the kids are learning and how to be a digital citizen within an academic or classroom setting?
Yeah.
And is that kind of being carried over into more of a social or non-academic, non-classroom setting? So, does it talk about, one set of behavior that should be applied universally? Because
Yes.
The school is not necessarily teaching social media, and you have filters, so those types of things are not necessarily integrated into a classroom. But in today's world, those problems become school problems.
So that is an excellent point. It's one of the reasons why we began the 9th grade digital literacy course, was the fact that we know students are on social media in earlier ages, but in terms of being able to talk to them and say, this is how you behave, it's 13 and over that you're on social media platforms, so that's why the 9th grade course is there. But even before, we start really young. We start at Miller Driscoll teaching students about the digital citizenship upstanding type of behavior. It's not just the do's and the don'ts, it's really how do you act when you're online and things are happening that shouldn't be happening. And it's not specifically in the academic setting, it's about being online and how do you stay safe and how do you, effectively manage yourself online. The digital footprint, the idea that anything that you do is permanent and can be permanent, that's actually very much stressed throughout. And we are, this coming summer, we were made a Common Sense Media District of Distinction 2 years ago when we first started, because we implemented a digital citizenship boot camp pre-K-12, essentially. And so Common Sense Media has recognized that things are changing quickly, even since 3 years ago when we started, and that we need to look at digital citizenship from a different lens now, from that upstander behavior type of lens, that how can you really make a difference online? And that speaks to not just academic, it speaks to life.
I have one last question. You mentioned the pre-K through 5 units in coding and innovative design. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure, love to. One of my favorite things. We have a curriculum that includes coding. This past month, as a matter of fact, this month, December, is the National Coding Month. You may have heard of Hour of Code. So we've taken Hour of Code and we've expanded it into units where students are actually using programs like Scratch and Scratch Junior to program and to make things. I was able to actually observe a class recently in 2nd grade where they're actually creating a story based on something that they read in class, so that it's kind of like a reflective piece where they're taking things that are happening in the classroom, bringing it into the LLC, and using programming to make it come alive, which is amazing. And watching these kids actually storyboard it out, and then using the different ways that they can loop and algorithms, it's great. Design thinking is what innovative design is about. And that's about taking a problem and going through a particular step to get to a solution. And it's part of the engineering process, it's STEM, and we're doing explicit instruction around design thinking.
And do we have opportunity after Scratch to do further coding as kids get older?
Yeah, so basically, we're doing an articulation. It starts with Scratch Junior, and there are some real, what I call like non-tech ways of learning coding. So you start with the non-tech, and then you kind of build yourself up. And Scratch itself is very, it can be very sophisticated. And there's other ways of getting to coding as you go on. Yeah.
I have one more question, sorry.
Sure.
Flexible seating.
Yes.
I know we've redone some of the library learning commons. I know we're piloting it in some classrooms. Have you guys looked into whether the teachers feel it's effective or not effective, and maybe what's the plan moving forward for other classrooms?
So, yes, on the library learning commons, there was a specific reason why we did that, because things changed in libraries, right? So that was the impetus, was changing programming, changing teaching, changing needs for the students. It's the same thing that's happening in classrooms. And it's, how can I put it? Things have changed from when I went to school, I'll just put it that way, and now. And so the environment needs to change. And our teachers that have had the pilots love it. Basically, I asked a couple of people out in the schools in terms of like, what did they want me to tell you tonight? And one of the things that they said was, we love our new spaces. We absolutely love them. And kids definitely love them. They're very excited about being in classrooms and in spaces that are redone and transformed. It meets the developmental needs. It meets the different needs of different kinds of learners. You don't get rid of tables and chairs. Tables and chairs are still there. It's just that they're easy to move around, and you can make groups of them, and you can do anything you want with them that fits the teaching.
And as we move towards maybe making more classrooms with the flexible seating, what are we doing with all of the other desks
So there
and
is a
chairs?
process that I think Jose can probably explain better than I do, but facilities has a process for taking things that we currently have and repurposing them, or,
There's a board discard policy that we follow. So some, with particular respected desks and chairs, some are kept in storage. We offer them to other town agencies, and anything that might be left over before they would go in the trash can, they're donated. So back in the fall, we donated a fair number, I think, out of Middlebrook School to some schools in Waterbury.
So are the teachers asking for the flexible seating, or are we just offering it to the teachers? Like, are teachers saying, can I be a pilot?
Flexible seating, but it's a matter of a plan being put into place, and we really need to. We're in the exploration and development of this plan right now.
I think it's great. Some people know I work in construction in New York City, and all the work environments are changing, and they're all very flexible. They're made with seating areas and desks that go up and down, or things that you can move around, and it's planned that people are not going to sit in a desk at a chair in one spot for 8 hours.
Right.
So it's nice that it's being reflected into the schools as well.
I see the principals nodding.
And there are things that you can do to make the current furniture we have more flexible, like tables that used to be used in kindergarten classrooms, and you just take the bottom part of the leg out, which then makes a table that the kids can sit on the floor on a cushion. So some things are flexible. It doesn't mean that we necessarily had to buy them new. It's just we use them in a different way. So there's that piece too.
Any feedback from the kids?
The kids love it because they love choice. And I think in our school anyway, the classrooms where we've seen the most success is when there is some of sort of the classic desks, like taken out, as opposed to some teachers who try to keep all of those desks and then add in even more because it gets a little bit crowded. But the kids love choice and they switch around, and depending upon the task, they'll sit in different places. So, and now our furniture in the core is amazing. Some of them like to go out there and work. So.
The students that have that furniture at high school, they feel special first of all. They come in, it's a welcoming learning environment. It's like what we learned at Bold Moose for Schools. Andrea has been instrumental in helping us get some of the furniture, and it's been a wonderful addition to the high school. And I think, as Fran said, the teachers, they crave it. They want something different, something flexible.
I think one of the things that it's important to point out is that part of using flexible seating well is the learning process of who I am as a learner and what kind of setup suits me best for different kinds of tasks. And so, there are a menu of choices. That doesn't mean that all kids will have, use them all equally. And that certainly, as kids learn that I don't actually work as successfully, ergonomically or socially, I get a little too chatty in these situations. We help them make those choices about what helps me be most productive on a certain kind of task. And I think that that's a real life skill, right? So if you think about it as, if you went into a Starbucks, there were a variety of seating, which one would you choose? And would it depend on what your task was at the time, what you were using your time for? It's the same thing. We want our kids to be able to make empowered choices. And sometimes it includes helping them realize what doesn't work for them.
All right. What's your biggest challenge or headache, or what do you worry about most in this in your digital technology plan?
Worry most. That's a good question.
I stole it from Mandy.
I'll give it to Eric first.
I was like, that is the question I always ask people.
I would say, I think the concern I have looking at sort of the infrastructure piece is we have a 5-year plan that we're working our way through, and I think it's important that we see the plan through to completion, because it's allowing us to change the classrooms, change how we're using technology and instruction, and it's allowing us to make a lot of changes behind the scenes that allow us to do the things we're able to do. I think sometimes in a technology plan, when you start, you say, well, we're having difficulty with the internet, and we're having difficulty with our wireless. And then as soon as those problems go away, all of a sudden, well, we decide that the underlying pieces that we've repaired and we need to manage and maintain to support all of the good things that are happening now, we need to make sure that we continue through the end of the plan to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's, so it remains usable and viable.
I'm going to add one on your behalf, if you don't mind, because one of the conversations that we have weekly among administrators is around professional learning and competition for time. Mm-hmm. And we've been, if you've been paying attention for the last 10 years, we're in a time of dramatic change for schools, and schools are, by nature, averse to change. So there's a lot of new to learn, and time is fixed for us, and so that's why taking opportunities for asynchronous learning and asynchronous professional development has really opened up new opportunities. But you saw, in terms of looking at the technology, this is an area that's just exploded, and our teachers want to do it right the first time. They want to do it well the first time, and that requires time and support. And so we are constantly in this push-pull and having to prioritize time and give a little to try to support people. But that's I think, on behalf of everybody, one of our most significant areas.
You said that much better than I could have, but I think that what I think about a lot is the fact that this is something that is going to be this plan that's going to be ongoing. Modern learning is going to be something that isn't a plan that we have for 3 years and then we're done. It's going to be continually evolving, and we need to prioritize it in a way that shows that. So we're at the point now where, in looking at the usage of our tools, they're highly used. What is being used is a question. How do we move that forward in terms of, are we getting to what our kids are asking, which is we want to invent, we want to innovate, we want to be creative. How do we move things to that point? Because, in fact, 21st century is 20 years in, means that time is going quicker, and how do we actually get to where we need to be with things so quickly evolving.
Is there like a parental resource kind of component to that? Do you feel that on certain things,
Yes.
is that like worthy of like exploring perhaps like parent workshops or other pieces, so how parents can support
So-
that type of learning? Because it's not
Absolutely.
something that I did in a classroom.
Yep.
And similar to like when you have a new way of teaching math, it's
Yep.
not the way that I taught math. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
So-
lots of Googling going
Right,
on.
so in the last 2 years, our first year out, we probably did a workshop, if not 2 per school for parents. Last year, we did 3. This year, we have not, and I'll tell you, I think that it's something we need to do in the second part of the year. Part of it is we just needed to kind of see where we were at in terms of, can we actually get more parents to come and to be part of that. So I think that if we are able to do, just like we talk about virtual PD, virtual meetings for parents as well, so that if we have a workshop, we can certainly have those that come, but I'd love to just like tape them and have them
like a
available.
tutorial or something
Yeah.
along those lines. I know that we use Scratch Junior and Scratch at my house.
Yep.
But it was a big learning curve for me.
Yes.
And things that come naturally for the younger kids. And
Yep.
even if it was like, I didn't know that you guys were using it in the school. So if like, a brochure comes home or,
Yeah.
this is something that we're
So,
just
yeah,
kind
I
of-
mean, and I can get more specific with our digital newsletters as time goes on, but we have been trying to communicate with parents and have had those workshops where we've said, here are all the resources that we have for your students. Our library learning commons folks and our technology instructional leaders do a great job, and they've led those workshops in the past, but we need to do more and tape them, like you said,
So-
and have them.
Well, I feel like we had this conversation last year as well, and it would be great. I know that you're sort of spoon feeding people, but if you can send an email with a link and all you got to do is open it and click, and you can find the recorded.
Yeah.
That would just be probably a lot
Yeah,
easier
no, I think that's great.
for the people who are busy.
Yeah.
And don't have time to go searching through 5 different web pages to find them.
Right.
Good. Okay, any other questions, comments? Well, thank you for your work, and it's truly challenging and, in a great way, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good, we get a financial report.
This is very difficult to follow Costa Rica, France, and all this exciting digital learning and then come to numbers.
No, we've been waiting all night for this.
Come on.
It's not as creative as some of the others. So I'll address just a couple.
Your program is called New World,
Oh,
so
well,
what
that's
else
true,
do we
actually.
need?
Okay, I will take that one. I will take that one. Very good, very good. Well, on that note, yes, we have moved to New World as our software, as we've mentioned in a meeting. This is our first year of New World that we've got on the financials. So I'll just give, for the new members, just a kind of a quick overview of the report and how it works for us. You'll see a column called amended budgets. Right now, we have actually a lot of changes happening on that because we took an old financial system, or we took a different financial system with their account systems. We tried to get them split out more because the better information we get, and we loaded the budget. And then we found a couple of different things needed to be tweaked, so that's why we have some amendments going in here, budget amendments back and forth. And right now between schools, that being because we have benefits in the district right now, and at some point, they're all going to get moved to the school levels. And I mentioned that in our smaller meeting, just for the newer members on it. So we run this, it's on a monthly basis. We're able to now break down things a little bit more. Our financials, and when I say financials, are paying our bills, anything in that capacity, that's an automatic process through here. Our payroll right now our payroll HR is still a third party, so that's a very manual process to get it into this report right now, and that will change January 3rd. We'll have it on an automatic thing. So something that would take the staff sometimes 2 to 3 days to tie out will literally take 10 minutes. once the payroll's done. So there's going to be a lot of efficiencies from that regard and going into the right. So this year we might have a little tweaks here and there of where they actually need to go, but we've put things into layers and put them into what we call divisions so that we can easily pull out information the way we want, like we did in the budget. SPED is in the budget for financial purposes at the school level, because we need that for what's our year-end report that's required up at the state. But from a budgeting purpose, it's better to see it out so you can see your comparisons year over year. We're going to blend that back in. So there's a little bit changes. We are on target right now still for budget. The best month for us to really start looking into things is between January and February. At that point, SPED knows for their excess cost up at the state, so we know what level we're looking at to know how we have to control expenditures depending on where that level of expenditure is going. And as some of you may or may not know, the state does not always does not cover us 100%. We range about 70-75%, so we have to gauge that amount because we don't know, what they will actually cover. So there was a couple of items that did come up that I put on the front letter. We have and I know we love acronyms, so the ACD, on the first one where I put the savings is due to lower ADEC, that's basically our actuarial determined contributions that were required for the OPEB. The OPEB is the medical benefits that people get after they retire, and the pension plan, which is the defined benefit plan that the town has. They come in every year as a budgeted item estimated, and then it gets trued up the next year, and then we just got our true up, so we had a savings of $65,000 between the two items of what we were actually required versus what was budgeted through an estimate.
And that's due to market performance primarily. Investment performance.
Investment performance, and we changed a couple of assumptions. So the mortality rate changed, and also on the pension side, or on the OPEB side, the medical trends, they've changed as well. So they're the main things, but then obviously the return. The OPEB, which is the medical plan, that's funded at 117% right now. The pension plan, that's actually at 98, it was higher, but it's just dropped slightly because as more people retire, we've less people putting into it. So the liability for our side of it goes up because we're losing that contribution to it. It is a closed plan except for, I believe, fire right now. I think it's completely closed, and everybody else now is on a defined like a 401A and things like that. So we had that savings of 65. What we did come up with is the second line. We had an increase in expense for a revised contract called Delange, and that was electrical things that they did probably, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. And 2 finance directors ago changed the contract, and nobody in finance had a copy of that change. So when we had it budgeted that it ran out, it was a lease payment, running out August of 2019, it's actually not running out till January, February of this year. So that's costing us another $50,000 we had not put in the budget because we weren't aware that that amendment was out there. A different side to that, as you're all governed by different things in teaching, on the finance side, we're governed by what's called GASB. It's the Governmental Accounting Board. And they've come up with another new rule. I think it's up to number 87. And what that means is we actually have to track every single lease because of this type of thing that happens. So it's kind of like the Enron thing, but we're smaller. So whatever leases we sign, it's not on our books anywhere that anyone can see that we owe for the next 5 years $100,000 a year. So that's a new rule for us that we have to start implementing next year, and we have to start tracking. Yeah.
It's a beneficial rule.
It is a beneficial because it is very difficult to realize. I mean, we know the things like when we get a technology lease and all that because we know that. But a lot of times people don't even think of it, the copier lease or silly thing. Yeah. So we have to actually start tracking them on a regular basis, and it'll avoid something like this happening. The third part was just on track side. Obviously, everything was estimated last year when we were doing it. We didn't know where we were actually going to be, so we had some rent, we had some startup costs. So that ran at about $14,000. So thankfully, the OPEB savings covered that. So we look at things right now as the savings come in to see, thankfully, hopefully we have no more other unexpected ones versus things that we choose to say we want to invest in this or we want to invest in a different program. So again, like I said, January, February is the main time for us to be able to say what's moving because the bulk of most of the programs are in place. The only things after that are just incidentals that you have to buy for the different science programs, things like that.
What's our fiscal year?
July 1st to June 30th.
So when you're reading this and it says like percent used,
Okay, actually, let me go into that too. So there's two, how we do it, cut me off if I go into the weeds, because you know I can. So we do different accounting. So we do encumbrance accounting, so which means not only in the year-to-date transactions, what you can see, you can actually see on day one that a line is completely spent. Because we've encumbered that full 100,000, so it looks like we spent it, but we haven't.
Got
we
it.
just tie it up.
Got it.
So depending on which category you're looking at, it could also look like we're fully spent.
got it. So you've tied it up even though it hasn't been.
Right.
Got it.
So we want to, it's certain leases, contracts, things that we are actually tied into that aren't sort of discretionary, we lock up because we know we're going to pay that 60,000 for the year. Nobody can touch any of those funds.
Got it.
So, to protect it.
Can I ask an old rule question?
Old world.
Yeah.
I can follow most of this, which is pretty good for me, but I have to admit that I kind of like the totals. Like rather than looking at 5 different salary lines.
You'd like to see one cover page on the front for everything?
Kinda
Yeah, we
would.
can roll that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can roll that up.
Is there a report function in New World to do that easily?
Not easily, but what we're doing with New World is I'm having someone come once we get over payroll, make sure
Yeah,
everything's
no,
paid properly.
yeah.
I'm having
Take your time.
someone to
Yep.
come in
Right.
and sit with the staff to go, what do we need? What the group has said how they want budget reports, things like that. And let's build them from scratch with the expert on how to do their tool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think a
because-
district total somehow.
A summary page,
System
yep.
total, yeah.
Definitely. Yep, we can put that together.
All right, but we all understand that this is hugely new, and appreciate you and the staff and the town and our staff working. And I know that the real test, or not the real test, but a major test will be payroll. So we, as a board, whatever our questions are, you need to put payroll first and then get to our questions.
Oh, well, but I'm
Yeah, I know.
obviously I'm open to whatever way you want to see it. I want to develop
Right,
it
I
that
just
way.
want to make sure you know that we're not trying to hold you up when we realize
Oh, no,
the
no.
importance of payroll.
No.
Getting that
I'm going
right.
to send the payroll people that don't get the checks to hear that.
No, that's my
This
point. I
number.
don't want to hear from it.
No, I would never do that.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yes,
All right.
no,
Well,
and this is a work in progress, so whatever.
It's
if
a
there's-
huge project, and it's been multi-years in coming and developing and transitioning and all of that. And
Right, this has been-
finally, we're seeing it's being implemented, so.
Can you spit this out in Excel?
That's what, a lot of the time, I spit it out to Excel, and that's what I said, I can format it
Oh, okay.
manually. I can do that. I can take and then just put a different one. I want to be able to build it, like whether a Crystal report or some other reporting tool that will just mine it for me and pull it through.
Like a dashboard or something.
We're not that elaborate as And I don't mean we, meaning Wilton, I'm just saying municipality software and things like that, but it can be built. It's just not a template that you would
Okay.
expect that you would incorporate.
New World 2.0.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Action items, discuss and approve the budget assumption and goals. And we saw them last meeting. We had time to send questions and/or suggestions. Is there more discussion, more questions, more comments?
I did revise based on the feedback on the board table and our conversation, so
Okay.
you have the most recent version.
Okay.
I rolled that comment into item number 2, the target investments in
Right.
new and existing programs.
Okay, good, good.
I move we approve the budget assumptions and goals as Dr. Smith has put forward.
Is there a second?
I second.
Discussion? This is sort of a part of the foundation of the budget, so.
I guess my only thought is that student enrollment will decline by plus or minus 54. Is that like our number that we're sticking to?
Well, it's a range.
Right.
So this year, we were surprised by the lower enrollment in kindergarten, but we take the best information we have. We heard Ellen Esmond at the last meeting.
Yep.
I take her numbers and triangulate them with NEPIC and then look backwards to some other reports we have.
So that's the number we're holding on to for the budget plan?
That's what so that number going forward, you'll see in the formal presentations, the 54 difference. And I think, for the benefit of everybody at the table and listening in the community, it's not an exact science.
Right.
The kids that we know are here are easier to predict. The kids that haven't arrived yet are much more difficult to predict.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Any opposed? I don't, okay. Thought I heard all but 6 yeses. Thank you. The next discuss and approve is the policy 0521, and I would like a motion to postpone approving this until our next meeting. The reason being there's some more work to be done on it in the policy committee, and there's some technical wording to work on, so it's better if we just wait till it's in its final form. So can I have a motion to postpone this to approve it at our next meeting?
I make a motion to postpone and we will approve it at the next meeting.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of postponing?
Aye.
Aye.
It's a tough policy to write
But can I
and get right.
put one word in also? Although I said at the next meeting, it might not be the next meeting, it might be the meeting after, just after after the policy committee reviews.
Okay, all right, so the understanding of next meeting would be when the policy committee releases it.
Yes.
How's that?
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. Is there, next one is discuss and approve policy 1210, parent organizations. Is there a move to approve the policy?
I so move to approve policy.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discuss and approve policy 3453, management of activity funds. Is there a motion to approve? Glenn? This is your favorite one.
Yeah, this is my favorite one. Finally, yes, I move to approve this policy, because hopefully it will bring some structure to this category.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Last one, discuss and approve policy 1322, contest for students. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 1 second. Oh, there it is. Okay. Next meeting, Thursday, January 16th, and I think one of the highlights at that meeting will be the superintendent will present the budget for next year already. Good heavens. All right. Thank you. Last item, comments from the public. Any comments from the public? All right. Having finished our agenda, I am adjourning the meeting.
All right, happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. I should have said that too, I'm sorry. 8:07.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
fast as ever, right?